Good morning. Welcome to another edition of my video blog, Johnny W. Bread. Hope you guys are having a great week. And today I'd like to talk about something maybe a little bit edgier. Who knows, but we'll see what you think. I know Christians a lot of times have no problem being on the forefront of issues they think are clearly wrong, like abortion, and they're totally against gay marriage as well. And those issues are fine because it does create, I guess, unity among Christians. And by and large, I totally disagree with abortion and gay marriage. Well, that's a little dicey a subject. I won't get into it here about the role of the state in the marriage process in general, but I do see that there is opportunities for Christians to have unity on a lot of issues. However, I think for Christians to be effective, they should have a single voice on many issues. And it's funny to me how a lot of times they won't touch controversial issues, even though clearly I think it calls for it. And I think in the long run, if they did, it'd be helpful. Let me give you an example. And this has to do with the recent primary win of Rand Paul in Kentucky for the Republican nod as the state senator for that state. He had appeared on a Rachel Maddow show, and he had made some references to the 1964 civil rights legislation. And he had touched upon the idea that he thinks there was some things wrong about the idea of the government being involved in people's private property. And he had to kind of like dance back and forth with that issue, which to me really is a no-brainer. Let me give you some examples. And I'm somebody who's been married for now almost 20 years. I'm in an interracial marriage. I have interracial kids. So I'm a little sensitive to the racial issue, but I want to look at things realistically. As Christians, we're allowed to talk about the Bible, about offensive things. If we talk about things about, hell and stuff, nobody's going to say you can't talk about that, even though it's, potentially a dicey issue. It can make people nervous when you talk about the idea that might be going to hell. Likewise, if people talk about Satanism, you would say, well, that's bad. I mean, talk about the devil, you can't have that in society. I don't think the majority of people would ever suggest that we can't talk in a culture that promotes free speech about issues that are potentially offensive. Well, if I had a neighbor who was inviting all friends over to their house, and I discovered my wife and I weren't invited over to their house because they didn't like us because we were interracial. Maybe they belonged to a skinheads association, whatever, and they didn't want me to come over and associate with them. Not that I really would, but they basically included everybody but me. And I said, this isn't right. If I went to the police or any law enforcement agency or any lawyer, they'd say I have no way to force those people to invite me to their house or their party, whatever they're having, because it's theirs. If they don't want to associate with me, it's their right. They want to be racist, whatever, that's their right. They have that opportunity in America, and that's just the way it is. And I think most people would agree that that is the way it is. Now, if somebody would use their own risk to create a business venture, and they decided they wanted to start, let's use a restaurant as an example, and they decided they only wanted to serve white people, women, they decided they wanted to serve who they wanted to serve because it's their business. Legally now, they can't do that. And I wonder why. It's their business. Besides, you would say, well, we can't let people do that because it's going to create all kinds of discrimination. But clearly, just as in the case of my neighborhood, if it became known that people weren't associating with blacks and they were having parties and I wasn't invited and I might have went to the media, this is going to create a problem for these people because people don't like public pressure, public scrutiny, or to be like shamed out of their own bad habits or biases. Likewise, a restaurant who decided to only serve, whites, big-breasted women, whatever, would be shamed out of business most likely because people would picket them and all these other things. And that's the way the free market works. And I don't see any reason why, even as a Christian, we shouldn't fight issues that do anything but allow the free market to work in the idea of association of people or things that somehow we've decided the government must get involved in. And Rand Paul, he stands for that. Yet he was troubled. He was troubled in answering that question to Rachel Maddow. And I just wonder why. Because to me, no way does it make you a racist to say that you want people to be able to do in their own lives with their own property what they see fit, and then face the consequences of public opinion. Uh, you know, and in the case of let's say the public airways, for instance, when Don Imus made a comment about the basketball team, I don't think it was in Tennessee, but their opponent. Well, I may have the teams wrong entirely, but he mentioned some women as nappy-headed hoes. As you notice, there was really no way to get Imus off the air legally, and it didn't happen. CBS eventually fired him, and that was their own decision. I mean, they decided because they didn't want to deal with the public pressure of sponsors and men like Al Sharpton coming down their throat. Imus lost his job at least for a year. And that's perfectly within the parameters of, I think, what I'm talking about. See, public pressure, and Imus did something stupid, and he paid. But he was never like saying, you broke a law or you violated anything. He didn't say anything obscene. He just made an opinion of his own. And this is the consequences of because people heard his opinion and people were morally outraged. Just like if I decided, to only have conservatives over my house, and I told everybody that I hate liberals, and I lived in a street that had a whole bunch of liberals, and one day they find out I hated that. Well, then I'd have to deal with the outrage of my neighbor because maybe I'm a little too upfront with my beliefs. That's where I'm going with this. And as Christians, even though we might like everything to be, kumbaya and nice, we can stand up for bad beliefs because ultimately we value freedom. Freedom is so important, and we should just be able to speak rationally and intellectually without getting all emotional about issues such as this. Am I being too controversial, too provocative? I don't really think so. Like I said, I believe in integration, but I think it should be done normally, not forced. And I think over time the marketplace does that. It did it with Jackie Robinson. He eventually played baseball because the owner of the Dodgers, Branch Rickey, knew that the public, once they saw him play, they're going to realize they want the best ball players. And these things happen. It happens in all walks of life. The market works. My thoughts for today. Thank you for listening. Have a good week. Until next time, Johnny W. Bread, I'm out.